Apache coming in for a landing. Welcome, folks, to the Wandering Pilgrims broadcast. Accidentally set up on my own personal account. Since it's such a personal time in my life, coming out as an attack helicopter, I guess it's only right that I should, more personalize it. But oh yeah, this show isn't about the pot shots I've been taking lately, so I'm gonna cut that mess out right here. It's actually rather. I have been experiencing some things lately, some life changes, some changes in attitudes, epiphanies, I guess. Don't want to over dramatize it or anything. It seems like there's such a crazy spirit in the air lately, and it seems like peace, contentment, and just all around well-being are more and more rare commodities in our social scenes. And it just kind of it's been hitting me for a while, but it really hit me the other day. It's really just all about letting go. Like, just start coming up with mushy brain new age truisms and whatnot. It's like, just let go and let God. No, it's not that simple. What I mean is it's all about letting go. It's not a very simple thing at all, though. It is it's a simple thing, but it has a comprehensive application. And when I think about letting go, more and more I see the need to let go of, I guess the place to start would be the need for control over other people, first and foremost. But where does that come from? The need to control other people. Well, it comes from a basic insecurity about the motives and abilities and ultimate goals of other people. And, I guess you could call that just trust. So if we need to let go of the need to control other people, then we need to start trusting people to be people according to knowledge, not according to speculation or fear. Letting go also means letting go of the need for that very security. How am I going to word that? It's about, sometimes you just don't need to be treated so great. Sometimes it's not such a big deal if someone's a jerk to you. You need to let go of it. It's about letting go of the need for acknowledgement and respect. It's about letting go of striving. I guess that's really what it comes down to for me. And one of the
Well, that was an interesting technical difficulty. I'll see if I can get that other connection back. But this is why I do two connections. Okay, so when I say it's about letting go of striving, what do I mean by that? I mean, it's about, oh, there I am. Am I coming across in duplicate now? Now this is confusing. I can see myself on my phone, but not on the computer. Well, all right. Well, I'll just not worry about that, and I'll just speak here. So when I say it's all about ceasing striving, I think of like I was talking to Justin in private message earlier this morning. Let me tell you a little story first. I decided to go for my daily bike ride yesterday. For the past couple weeks, I've really been trying to work on. Oh, there's Johnny Ray. Hey, Johnny Ray. You there?
What's up?
What's up? Yeah, I'm kind of dealing with technical difficulties, so I don't have any video right at the moment. But you do have my wonderfully sexy voice to listen to. So anyway, I was just trying to relay a bit of a story, a bit of an experience. I've been telling you about how I've been trying to get back in shape lately and building healthy habits and stuff. Oh geez, figuring out this phone is stupid. Trying to build healthy habits and trying to really just keep to a daily routine that's just getting more and more stuff done. And one of my things that's really helped in productivity is going for a daily bike ride for an hour or two, really pushing myself, huffing and puffing and breaking a sweat. And I did the same thing yesterday, not thinking, Sundays become like my normal day in rest. You got to have a day where you just kind of recharge and don't really push yourself as hard. I was like, screw it. I don't want to break my momentum. I've been doing so good lately. So I go out there and I start really pushing myself. My legs are really like burning more than normal. And it's like windy as hell, windier than it's been all week. And it's like after about a half hour, 45 minutes, I'm heading out towards Mere Point, which is a good 5-10 miles from here. And I'm like, oh, this headwind is too much. I can't do it. I just got to head back. So I turn around and head back. I shit you not, dude. The wind changed direction. No matter which way I went, it was in my face and it was hard. I sit really high up on my bike. I got a really, really big bike. It's a 29-inch and the seat's like super high up. And like I have this huge profile that like I'm like a parachute riding into the wind. So a ride that would normally take less than a half hour took me more than an hour. And my legs are screaming at me. And I'm like, you know what? This is what it meant when this is what Christ meant when he said to Paul, isn't it hard to kick against the goads, kick against the pricks? It's like there's a time to rest and there's a time to cease activity. And if you don't, you'll wish you had. And that was my experience. And that's really been the ongoing theme lately of a lot of my experiences, a lot of how the Spirit's been testifying within me. And I don't know. What do you think? What do you think of all that stuff?
Yeah, I have a similar experience on a bike ride. Me and my buddy were doing 30 miles, and pretty much the same thing happened, man. And we were just exhausted when we got back. Plus, it was getting cold, so like it was like a cold breeze, and we weren't dressed for it.
Oh yeah, it was like 40 degrees yesterday morning.
But yeah, the moral of the story is definitely relevant.
Yeah, and it's hard. It's been hard for me to kind of figure it out because one of the things, I guess it helps looking into Eastern philosophy and Buddhism and Hinduism and Taoism, but especially that thing, I can't even remember what it's called, Wei Wu Wei. Am I saying that right? Wei Wu Wei? You ever heard of that?
I have no clue.
Action without action, effort without effort. It really got me thinking of what it is to be in the flow, what it is to be in the zone. And it's not about like taking a limp wristed approach to things and not, giving it your all. What it's about, and I almost think that it's almost impossible to explain if you haven't experienced it before. But what it's really about is finding that current, finding that wind, and figuring out how to use it. And you can go against the wind without actually going against the wind. There's a navigational trick. I don't know how much you know about navigation and whatnot, but before like 200-300 years ago, the main form of propulsion, nautically speaking, was wind. And that's why the trade routes were what they were. They were mainly following the prevailing winds. But as we progressed into getting closer and closer to the Industrial Revolution, we began to have a greater need for trade on demand, for the ability to just sail wherever we needed to sail. And so the sailors developed these techniques of navigation where they would angle the sails and the ship itself in such a way as to zigzag into the wind, and they could actually use the wind that was going in the opposite direction that they needed to go to get to where they needed to go. It's really, really cool when you think about that. When you think about the geometry of spirit and being filled with that spirit, I hate the metaphysical connotations that people get when you start talking about spiritual things. Because in the Bible, more often than not, the primary meaning of spirit is an attitude, an idea, just this way of being. And not saying that there's not personality attached to that, but the real focus is on the nature of or the essence of that attitude or that idea, that way of being. And to be in the spirit, to be in the flow, to be in the zone, I'm feeling more and more like it's not about always feeling good, but it's about feeling right. It's not all about feeling comfortable, but it is about being at peace. It's not about total cessation of effort per se, but it is about resting in your effort. And it's something that is almost impossible to explain until you actually just put your nose to the grindstone and actually just I don't know. I'm getting an image in my head. I don't know if you guys out there watch Seinfeld at all, but there was that one episode, George Costanza, the world's greatest liar. He decides that he's just going to do the exact opposite of what George would normally do. He's not going to do anything that he would normally do right. Anytime he gets an idea of doing anything, he's just going to do the exact opposite. And for a few days, his life was bliss. It's like his whole life was about striving. His whole life was about going against the flow. And just by virtue of how like contrary he was to the flow, by going against it in that way, by going against his normal flow, he caught the actual flow until he screwed up and got complacent in it, and bam, he lost it again. But I mean, I think most of us spend most of our lives like really trying to make things happen rather than following into those things that to where we're being brought. I mean, there's always opposing forces in this way and that. I'm going to stop screwing with my phone because I'm just getting distracted here. But I feel uncomfortable when people can't see my face because I have a hard time really articulating myself effectively, but it doesn't really matter. I don't know if for some reason the camera on here hasn't been working. Yeah, see, that's what happens. Ooh, I'm blinded by the light. But so anyway, the other thing that occurred to me is, why is it that life is so hard? Why is it that it seems like the harder we try, the more ineffectual we are, but yet when we don't try at all, nothing gets done? It's not like there's some middle ground between those two, because it's not a mixture of laziness and busting ass. It's something different. It's something new that we haven't considered. And it hit me, opposing muscles. I can't remember what they were called from biology class, but we have flexors and extenders, I think, are what they are. Like your biceps would be flexors, whereas your triceps would be extenders. And these opposing muscles move your arm in the two different ways when you do a curl. And the way most of us operate is when we're doing some kind of precise activity that requires meticulous attention to detail, we tense up. And the subconscious idea behind this tension is that I'm gonna, with as much effort as possible, hold myself as steady as possible and just allow slightly less effort in the direction to which I don't want it to go. I don't know why we do this instinctively. It seems kind of like a waste of energy to put so much effort into what we don't want to do just to keep from overdoing what we do want to do. And so the idea that I felt building in my mind is, what if all effort was completely intentional, that nothing was subconscious? What if all effort was absolutely actively chosen by us? What if we stopped the autopilot, which immediately tenses up, resists, flexes, whatever? What if we ceased all activity, revoked all permission to our subconscious, and sat in complete inactivity and put only effort into the particular thing that we want to do. I don't want this point to be glossed over. I don't want this to be oversimplified. I want to be very clear about what I'm talking about here. I'm not talking about just not trying to do anything, and I'm not talking about some kind of possession where a spirit does things for you. What I'm talking about is learning true rest, learning true peace by a complete and total cessation of activity. Thank you very much, honey. By a complete and total cessation of activity until there is something which warrants our effort. And then at that point, when there is a thing which warrants our effort, we go through great pains to pay attention to the effort that we put out and put out only effort in the direction that we desire. So, am I just a total idiot here who's stating the obvious, or have I touched upon something really profound? Because to me, this seems like
Yes.
huge. Oh, I'm a total idiot.
No,
this
you can. No, the other thing.
This is my first glass of wine of the day, by the way, and
All
my
right.
my wonderfully beautiful wife just brought it to me. So, what does my picture look like on the other side of this?
Dude, you look like a spirit being, like an angel of light.
I don't know what's up with this. I screwed up by creating the event on my own account anyway. But like I said in the beginning, it's not a big deal. I just wish, you know, I like people seeing my face because I feel like I communicate more information through my expressions and demeanor and whatnot. Just like my voice. I like I was talking to Justin this morning, and sometimes because, I'm used to talking rough because people can feel my warmth when they're interacting with me. So they get the hyperbole that I use. They get the facetiousness behind my stuff. I'm not a hateful, spiteful person, but I can see how it would come across like that in text. And
Can you hear me?
I can. Oh, hey, Vince, what's going on, buddy?
I'm trying on a tablet. I'm trying on a Nook without it doesn't have any like a camera or anything on it. But I'm trying to connect that way. I didn't want to use my computer.
Yeah, that's cool.
I'm
It
staying
seems
by
like
the
that's
phone today because my mom is sick, so I'm staying by the phone.
Yeah. So what's she sick with?
She's got fluid on the lungs. She's very serious at the moment.
Oh.
I don't know if I'm going home to a funeral or I'm going home to her being sick, or I don't know what I'm going to at the moment.
Rough stuff, man. Well, we'll definitely be praying for you, and I encourage everyone who's watching us to pray. If you're not a Christian, send your positive vibes. I do believe that has power too. So, yeah, I really hope that you get home in time. I know you're really excited about seeing your parents again.
Yeah, well, she got sick suddenly. Like she was a little bit sick, but now she's like really sick.
Yeah, it's probably the Prince thing. She saw that on TV and she just couldn't handle it.
I don't know if she knows who Prince is.
I'm not trying to be in bad taste here. I just, I really do hope she gets better.
So what's the topic? About sin or something?
No, that was just my pithy way of wording it. No, we're talking about something that you actually have a lot to add to the conversation, which is why I wanted Michelle to message you. Talking about Wei Wu Wei. Does that sound familiar to you?
Wei Wu Wei?
Yes. Did you see on the banner for the event the definition there?
No, I didn't see anything because I've been busy.
Okay, so it says conscious non-action, the deliberate and principled decision to do nothing for a reason. And I was just going through a bit of a backstory of experience. A couple of experiences or a couple of thought processes that led me to where I'm at right now, thinking that, the last example that I gave was we tense up, we use opposing muscles, spiritually speaking, mentally speaking, that we put so much effort into pulling ourselves into this state of balance that we actually end up in super unbalance. And that, in my mind, the real answer is in the cessation of all effort until there is a thing that warrants effort and then the effort should be focused at that and only that, without that opposing muscle tension thing going on.
Well, you should act as one unity, I guess. Is that what you're saying? You should act as one. You shouldn't be acting against yourself.
Uh-huh. Yes, yeah. Yin Qi and Yang Qi should not be fighting. They should be complementary.
Yeah.
And what I think Johnny was about to say something right before you popped in. Mr. Zambrato?
What?
Domo irrigato, Mr. Zambrato. Were you about to say something before Vince popped in?
Nothing good.
Oh, come on. You know, I'm sure it was perfectly good.
No, like I don't know, man. I'm pretty shallow today.
Well, I know this is stuff that you and I have talked about to a limited degree in the past. You know, about I guess I've always termed it finding your Zen. That's what I should have thought of earlier. That's what I've always called it before. Finding your Zen. You know, that place of peace inside where, you know, and I always want to avoid giving the wrong impression. I'm not talking about being a leaf floating on the wind, okay? It's not that. We're active agents in this. What I'm talking about is choosing which wind to float on. You know, putting up your sails intentionally, angling them to catch the wind in the way that takes you in the direction into which you want to go. Anybody? Anybody? Anybody?
The universe will take you where it wants to go a lot of times without you meaning it.
Oh, of course. Oh, of course. But what role does agency have in this?
You have some limited free will. If you're talking about free will, you have some limited amount of it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I for the sake of avoiding the philosophical confusion, I would term it our sphere of liberty. There is a certain non-deterministic sphere in which we live, outside of which things are completely and totally beyond our control. And the closer you get to the core of that sphere, the more control we have, but it's not as though there's things we can control, there's things we can't. There's degrees of control. Can you agree with that?
Yeah, there's degrees. Yeah, that's a good way of putting it.
Yeah, well, it's because a good example is like a marriage. I have a degree of control over whether Michelle and I have a good day or we have a bad day. But there's certain things that are out of my control in that, and some of them are chemically oriented. Some of them are acts of fortune, you know, acts of God. Some of them are completely and totally in her control. And the recognition of both the extent and the limitations of that control, as well as the legitimacy of that control, which is where I began the broadcast. I'll take us there. The idea, I think, that really sparked this in me, and this has been years coming, is how we could tackle pretty much every single problem. And the more I think about it, every single problem comes back down to people trying to control other people. And if we could learn to just stop controlling other people, a lot of these problems would disappear. But it's a consensual thing. You know, if one party ceases aggression, that doesn't guarantee that the other party will. So how do you know, you can be the change you want in the world all you want. You might just be a martyr. You know, so what do you do with that? So I'd like to find that libertine flow that seeks. Okay, because I know your interest, Vince. You're very, very concerned about the more disenfranchised element of our culture, and you're very, very convicted about the need to include them in our society. Something that, in spirit, I agree with you. Not always in substance, but in spirit. I'm more myself concerned with staving off aggression. You know, keeping myself personally free and letting other people tend to themselves. But within that, we can find how both of our interests are met through negotiation, through cooperation, and through a certain level of just taking it on the nose. Sam Squanch, Giggle Pheasant, joins the party.
What's up?
How's it going? How much have you been able to hear?
A good well, I came in actually. I might have been 10 minutes after 11, or 15 minutes, I feel it. I don't know.
That's cool. I've been really struggling with staying on a singular line of thought. I don't know if you've caught my last few broadcasts, but I've been really struggling with keeping it coherent. I've been jumping around a lot, so I always like it when I got other people around to rein me in. But so, have any thoughts thus far?
Yeah, totally. When you were talking, I was just like wanting to leap in right then. Because I know exactly what you're talking about, for sure. And this is something that several years ago now, but I had sort of a word spoken to me. You know how, you and I probably get this, where it's like a word is being spoken to your spirit, but it's not like totally verbal. It's kind of like, it's sort of like a communication. It's a definite communication, but it's like, it's almost like words, but it's in picture form, or
it's what I was talking about earlier. That you get that spirit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, the whole thing was, and there was kind of words to it, but it was like, soon, or it was like soon or eventually, somewhere in that range, you will come into a Sabbath rest where you won't exert any effort.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, wow, that'll be awesome, because my whole life, that song I was telling you about, Goodbye I, where it's like goodbye seeing and doing, and the compared between the hummingbird and the tortoise.
Mm-hmm.
I can put that in the description for anyone who's curious what I'm talking about, but it really spoke to me. And this has been it's been a lifelong struggle for me to not like, because I always felt that tension of trying to do things I didn't want to do and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And it came down to the point where I started to recognize it was like a Jungian dichotomy going on, where there's a compensation in my subconscious every time I want to do something. Like the whole, I don't do the things I want to do, and I do the things I don't want to do.
Oh yeah, Romans 7.
Yeah,
I know that one by heart.
Yeah. And so anyway, what I got and this was like, it's crazy, this was like 2005 or something, and I started to get this sense that I would be doing things, but I wouldn't be like, there would be no conscious exertion on my part,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so, starting in like 2012, probably 2013, I remember, about the time this started happening, and I get this sense, it'd be like a few moments at a time, where I'd be doing my usual work, on my job, doing my work, and yet it was like I was on, and this gets to the part where it's hard to explain. It's like being on automatic, but you're not, you're like out of control, but you're not.
You're in the zone.
You're in control, but you're not under your conscious, like, deliberate control. Like, you're not trying to think through, and like, you're not questioning what you're doing. You're doing with your whole being. And it was like I was watching myself do stuff, but yeah, I knew this was flowing out of my inner being, and this would happen for like moments at a time, and then the next time it happened in the next wave, it was like a little bit longer, and then now it's like almost like I'm not even aware of the dichotomy anymore between the two realities. Maybe it's becoming so natural, I don't know, but it's sort of like your thoughts.
Sorry.
Someone has, yeah.
That was me.
Okay. Your actions are springing out of your basic thoughts about, like, your basic, like, I'm trying to figure out how to put it. Not theory, not even methodology, but there's something, like, you're operating from your current understanding of the world and what is best to do, and it's just like automatically flowing. There's just this direct flow, just from inward to outward, and so you're not even like, it's weird. It's like you're just kind of,
it's like zero.
You're automatically doing things, but then it's coming from your whole total being. If that makes sense.
Absolutely. What were you saying, Vince?
Zero resistance.
Yeah.
You become a spiritual superconductor.
Yeah, it's like there's no resistance within you to what you're doing.
Victor Wooten. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
And it's funny that that's so odd because it seems like it should be so natural. Like
I
when
was
you're.
just gonna,
Okay, go
so
ahead.
every time I think you're done, you just say over when you're done.
Go ahead.
Okay, I was just gonna say I saw a video that Victor Wooten did a few years ago. For anyone who doesn't know, he's probably the best bassist in the world today. Exceptionally talented, pioneering so many techniques, and he only plays a 4-string, for crying out loud. And he said there's 4 levels to knowing. 4 levels to knowing. He said the first level is unconscious not knowing, where you're ignorant and you don't even have any idea how ignorant you are until you try to do something and you fail, and then you become conscious not knowing. That's a second level. And that's a place of discomfort. You see, the first place is a place of bliss, but the second place is discomfort. You're aware of your inadequacy. The third place, however, is conscious knowing. You take the time, you learn, you begin understanding. I think most of us in most areas of our lives where we feel competency would be at level 3. But the magical level to get to, the virtuoso level, the zone per se, would be level 4, unconscious knowing, where you're doing a solo and your fingers are flying like crazy and you're screaming your lungs out and you're not even thinking about what you're doing, but you're rocking the crowd and rock star.
And I think everyone who's mastered something or come close to mastering something knows a little bit about what that feels like. We're just not all there yet. We're not there yet on an everyday, like, moment-to-moment level. I think probably most people know at least what it's like to be there for a few moments. Could you hear me? Hello?
I can hear you.
Okay. And also, is my video going, or? I don't see my video. Huh?
I can see your video.
Oh, okay. For some reason it's not going for me. I don't know.
Sorry, I got a little blank spot there. I'm not going to be able to use the phone with this, but...
Okay.
You guys still there?
Yep.
All right, what was the last thing I missed?
Oh, shoot. Was I talking to you?
Justin was in the zone.
Justin was in the zone. Okay, I caught that. And you were trying to say something, Vince.
Was I trying to say something? I don't know.
I think it was
I
just
wasn't in the zone, so I don't remember.
In the zone. Auto zone.
You know, I guess this is probably why early morning is one of my favorite times of day. It seems like my thoughts are the clearest. I have just random insights that seem to come out of nowhere. I think it's because I haven't had time to busy my head with all the worries of the day, and I'm just coming at things fresh. Especially, you know, lucid dreaming and whatnot. Coming back into this world is a bit of an experience. You know, a lot of times I wake up in the morning and it's not a fine dividing line between wakefulness and sleep. It's like I'm lying in bed a little while, getting more and more conscious, but even then after I get out of bed and I'm commenting on Facebook or something, it's still kind of ethereal, surreal, and trying to remember, oh, did I dream that or did that actually happen? And I think at those moments where you're like just kind of floating and not really concerned with anything of consequence, that's when you're the most free and you can just be without that striving. Because the theme that I'm really feeling is that striving is the enemy of any kind of progress. It's self-enmity almost.
You know, I want to tie this back into a conversation I had this morning with Christopher McHugh.
Mm-hmm.
And it started out with, Sarah's wanting to know if I can link her to the video, but it's kind of hard to do on my tablet.
Oh, I can do it. Give me just a second.
Okay. Basically, it started out, I was talking about how, you know, some of the things he's saying, I was like, oh yeah, I know all this, it's rehearsal for me. And then I was like, well, wait a second. Maybe I'm like, depriving myself of the ability to see it through a new lens, or like let it be fresh for me. I'm like, why do I keep always doing this? Like whenever I hear something, I think it's old hat, or I feel like I know it front to back. I'm like, and so I brought that up. I was like, maybe I should just let myself learn it all over again, sort of. And then he was like, don't do, and this has been a theme for him too, don't do the direction that, or go in the direction that you feel is bad, like that you're kind of putting in a pox on, you're like crossing out and like, no, that's wrong. He's like, go in that direction, and instead of just doing what you have always felt is the right path. And I was like, well, actually, that's what I am doing, because for me to go through the fact, like to accept the repetition and like, oh yeah, like act like this is some new truth for me.
Where's your other shoe?
What's up, Sarah?
Hey.
Sorry, I need to mute my mic.
Here's an interesting thought, Justin. And I remember experiencing something similar when I was a child, and I see it every day in my son Gavin, where you know what you're supposed to do, you want to do what you're supposed to do, someone gives you an instruction, and without even thinking, you instantly do the exact opposite. Have you ever experienced that?
I think for me, at least at first it was very deliberate, but probably later on, yeah. And I always prided myself on being the unusual one and like going against the flow. Like that was, to me, that was my identity.
Mm-hmm.
And like, I wouldn't be able to have any pride in myself if I just did what everybody else was doing.
Right.
It's become less true. I mean, I know I'm obviously still a contrarian just by default, but it's become less true for me to consciously feel that way. Like I don't mind blending in now, but then obviously it's just so embedded in who I am. I do tend to stick out a lot anyway, and that kind of proves a lesson. Like this is what helped start me on the path. Let me say this real quick. Someone said you can never truly lose who you really are.
Yeah, I agree with that. But I also think, how would I say it? You can never truly lose who you are, but sometimes you can deviate so far that the correction takes a very drastic form.
Yeah. You know what? I didn't mean.
No, I know. All I'm saying is sometimes it seems like you do. Like I felt like, before 2 years ago, for like the 4 years prior to it, I really felt like I did lose who I was. I felt like I had completely and totally lost my mind, lost everything that ever meant anything to me, my values inside that I'd compromised. And it's like, no, all that had really happened is I lost my way and I lost my sight. But, eventually, you struggle climbing up that hill enough, you poke your head up through the clouds and you look around and see, oh yeah, I'm still there, I'm just in a really hurting state right now.
What was that last part?
Said, you poke your head up through the clouds and you look around and you see, oh yeah, I'm still here, it's just I'm in a real hurting state.
Yeah. Yeah, like, I've been feeling that way for the past several years, where I've lost touch with a lot of who I was.
Yeah.
And I'm slowly, very gradually getting it back. But I do think that you can lose touch with who you are, but you can't lose it, like, as in, like you actually become such a person that you can't be redeemed, or you can't come back.
I would say it's like a drug. You can anesthetize yourself to the point where you can't feel your hands, but eventually they'll come back. They're still there. They're attached.
There you go.
And that's what I think sin is some kind of anesthesia, because really the more I understand Provatio Boni and how it really is just misaligned priorities, how things, we value things in the wrong order. That really is
exactly.
the part and parcel of sin. And if we learn the proper order to value things, then all of that would take care of itself. But I think part of it is, well, not part of it. I think it really comes down to the whole thing. It's this thing called ego. And I'm still figuring it out. Here's the thing, and this is something I want everyone to listen very closely, because if you get nothing else from any of these broadcasts, I hope you get this. You can think you understand a thing, but especially like with philosophical ideas of good and evil, light and dark, of right and wrong, you never, ever, ever, ever truly understand a thing. I've become so convinced of that you can approach understanding, but it's just like you can never really like touch it. You know, we're too limited. Our corporeal coil here does not allow for that exhaustive understanding. Wisdom and insight is truly unsearchable. So you get what I'm saying here?
Yeah, for sure.
You always have to reevaluate your understanding, because it's always just stepping stones. It's not a definition, destination.
That reminds me of, well, first of all, God is obviously beyond our total conception, like,
oh, absolutely,
and His pure being. And then there was a line from George MacDonald's Lilith, and basically the raven says, "Only God can understand evil." That's so true. How can we understand? Like, we can kind of understand circumstantially, but how can we ever truly understand why anyone would ever go wrong? Like, if you contemplate the goodness of God, and then you contemplate us and our total dependence on Him, as like, how does that even make sense? Like, why would we ever do that? And you kind of understand some of the thought process and the circumstances, but where does it like ultimately come from? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, well, it's Gödel's incompleteness theorem, because we don't realize how subject we are to evil until we are no longer subject to evil. We will never fully understand it. Just like oh, go ahead, Vince.
So what did you eat along with that apple then? Was that the apple of the knowledge of good and evil? What was the apple all about?
You want to give this one a shot, Justin, or do you want me to?
Wait, I didn't quite catch all he said.
He's talking about the fruit of the knowledge, the fruit of the tree of knowledge of good and evil, and it wasn't it wasn't an
apple. As an explanation?
Well, he's saying what was it that was evil about it? What made it evil?
Oh. Well, I think. Well, I'm probably, I'll get disagreement on this, but it was a majorly metaphorical.
Didn't you consume knowledge at that stage? If your knowledge is incomplete, then was it some further apple that you should have eaten, or
okay,
what?
Well, the knowledge spoken of there, if you look at the original Hebrew, it's the same sense in which it said like Adam knew Eve, or this, the man and woman knew each other, in the biblical sense. It's an intimacy. It's a like experience from the inside out. It's not like they didn't know that this was like something that God didn't want, and it would kind of create some tension at the very least in their relationship. They just didn't know what it was like. They didn't know it as experiential reality. Does that make sense?
I think the what I like to
emotional knowing of evil.
Wait, what? Oh, sorry. Go ahead. What are you saying?
Was it more like an emotional level or knowing of evil instead of an intellectual knowing?
Yeah, not just emotional, but because you can't exactly classify just experiences as purely emotional, but there's more to it than I know what you're saying. Emotions are experiences too, but there's more to it than that, just the emotions.
The word would be existential, not emotional. It's an existential thing.
Yeah.
So what I like to focus on, because there's all kinds of esoteric interpretations of this, many of which make more sense than others. What the core of what's going on here is the act of disobedience brings that knowledge that you've disobeyed. You know what I mean, Vince?
Okay.
So that's the basic starting point. You can follow it even deeper than that if you really wanna get into it. I mean, was the tree poison? Was it a mushroom that gave them hallucinations? Did they get delusions from it? Some people have even said that it was sex with angelic beings, or sex with Adam, or whatever. Who knows? I don't know, and I don't.
I have another question as well.
What's that?
If the apple was created,
It's not an
then
apple.
Possibly,
It's
then
not
possibly,
an apple.
Okay, fruit.
Thank you.
Okay, if the fruit was created, the tree and the fruit, then maybe we were supposed to have et of it at some later date. We were more developed or something.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, you could say that, or you could say that hemlock serves many purposes, but ingestion is not one of them. That's
true
how I
too.
look
Right?
at it.
I mean, there's different ways to look at it. I think it's a polemic response to other cultural origin stories, and I'm not saying there's not possibly any physical thing behind it, but it was a response, and the snake was, like, for instance, the snake was regarded as this wise deity in other surrounding cultures, and the fruit, like the tree of life, that's features in the Sumerian origin stories, and I think theirs is clearly symbolic, if I recall. So I don't know. I mean, there's just as far as like that whole thing about whether it would have been good to eat a later date or if it was just pure poison. If it was a created thing, there are created things that are poison, but I mean, it's not. To say that like God created something that is purely evil is kind of silly. But we could say maybe something was corrupted.
I agree with you, but I have a hard time characterizing a 1,000-foot cliff as evil just because you can fall off of it.
Yeah.
So I guess we have to differentiate between natural evil and moral evil, because of course God created natural evil, and no one would ever contest that. It's the moral evil that's contested.
Well, I think to experience something as natural evil, I think natural evil really centers on whether a being would experience something as like conflicting or suffering or whatever. It doesn't necessarily have to do with like just the exact chemical makeup or anything like that.
Yeah, I think that's a little too deep for us right now. That's just I don't even know where to begin there. That's a broad topic.
Yeah.
But so
we've diverged a little bit here.
What's that?
We've diverged a little bit here.
Yes, we've diverged a little bit. So, did you catch my little story about riding my bike into the wind both ways?
Oh, me? Yeah. I got it.
Yeah, it's the funny thing is I was already like meditating on these things for like the past couple of weeks, but especially when yesterday it just seemed like such an illustration. I was miserable. I mean, like I was telling Johnny, it was 40 degrees, and that wind, I had to take my windbreaker off because I was just building up sweat, and every time the wind would peek down through it, it was like ice cold, making my nipples hard enough to cut glass. And so I take my windbreaker off, and it's like, oh my goodness, that wind's just permeating my everything, and it's like a million icy daggers to my tender nubile flesh, and like, yep, that's what you get for going against the flow.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say that I used to like be just so in the flow of like it felt like I was perfectly in harmony with the universe to the extent where my dad would even notice like for instance, I would just walk up to the bus stop and the bus would just come right that instant. And actually, this has remained a little bit to some extent because I used to like run out late to the bus or run out the last minutes of the bus, and like consistently every day I would just like get there right when the bus was coming, and just like little things like that. And my dad was like, "Boy, you really do have a favorite bell, don't you?" I was like, I guess so. I never really noticed that, like, because it was just so natural for me. It happened constantly. I didn't really notice. It was like the ocean, for a fish. Yeah. And
sorry, go ahead.
But like a few years ago, and oh no, this is a whole can of worms. But you remember? I'm not going to mention her name, but she gave me a rating basically, and said that like around my 30th, I think it's 29th birthday, I would start just getting like hassled and like feel like life was all a struggle and uphill battle. And man, did it start, and it has lasted to some extent. Like it faded after a year and a half or so, but to some extent it's still with me even now, and now I'm just now coming out of that total like wasteland.
So how much do you think is kicking against the goads?
What do you mean?
The struggle you've had. How much how much is it like you just resisting the movement of the spirit, resisting the current, and how much of it is just, I mean, like, characterize it. Do you feel like this is your responsibility? Do you feel like it's just a growing experience? I mean, for myself, I own a lot of iniquity for my experience. Just to put that out there. So I was just curious how you see it in your own experience.
I need to go back in just a sec, but I'm gonna say this real quick. And this is a good.
Just pay attention to the time.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. This might be a good launching pad for further discussion here after I leave. But basically, I think it's both. In that even though I live in a fallen world, you're still able to harmonize with things because God has an overall plan, redemptive plan, right? Mm-hmm. But before, I think I just fallen into it, not consciously fought for it, and entered into that rest deliberately. And I think that's the major thing that we know, fight for deliberately, not just these little piddling things, but this overall zen, being a flow. And so now I'm like learning to have to fight to get in it and consciously, totally turn my life over to the Spirit instead of just having just fallen into it at some point.
I love that you brought it in that direction, because I was thinking that before the broadcast even began, thinking about my personality and how a lot of times it might look like I'm fighting against the flow, when really I am just being me, and that's my function. That's who I am. And I know there are times where I go overboard and I get overly personal and derogatory or whatever. I try my best to walk that line as carefully as I can, but I'm not perfect. But there is, that's why I try to stress so much when we talk about the cessation of effort or the cessation of striving. We're not talking about not working, not putting out effort. It's just very focused effort, letting go of everything that is not that one thing. I don't know if that made any sense. Oh, I lost Justin. Well, he's got to go back to work anyway. I don't know if he'll pop back on before he gets out, but yeah, that's something I think about, because, like, okay, I've been on a bit of a crusade lately against social justice warriors, but to be honest with you, people don't realize how domesticated they've become. And I'll give you a little I don't know if you call it an anecdote or an example. For years we've known about that study where they put rats in a cage and they had water laced with heroin and water that didn't have any heroin, and the rats almost all starved themselves to death just for the sake of having their heroin. What we do not know about, a lot of us anyway, is a second experiment where a dude decided to increase the size of the cage substantially and to give the rats all kinds of activities and things to occupy themselves. And what he found is that, yes, some of them did become addicted to the heroin, but eventually 9 out of 10 of them weaned themselves off of it. Without any social programs, without any help, they just lost interest. And the key was they had liberty. They had freedom to explore their options, and one of the options that they had was inebriating themselves. But
wasn't that study linked also to community and the fact that there were more rats than the cage?
Yes.
Yes, that was a part of it as well. That was definitely a part of it. There was only like 5 or 6 rats per cage in the original study. Some of them were only like by themselves in the cage, whereas in this bigger cage there's all kinds of them. And rats are normally social creatures anyway, very similar to humans. I've like raised countless litters of rats and stuff, so I've gotten to see how accurately we're represented in their social structure, and sometimes the findings are a little disturbing. especially when they turn cannibal. But I digress. The lesson that we need to take away from this, okay, we need to pay attention very carefully. Our problem is not that we have too much freedom. Our problem is that we don't have enough. And in our quest, in our quest for legitimacy, for respect, for valuation, to be accepted into society, we don't realize how we're trading all of our liberties and thus confining ourselves further and consigning ourselves to an addictive future. Because almost down to every last one of us these days, we have a vice. And this has not always been so. The United States has had a particular problem with this because of our decadent attitude, because our philosophy reeks of more and more and more and more. And so we've had a lot of laws throughout the ages that have governed our drinking and governed our drug use, and what we found is they've only made the problem worse. Do I need to hearken unto the Prohibition era? How bad crime was, how bad addiction was, and how about the great generation thereafter, where in the 50s we had an all-time low of alcoholism? How did that work? So when we talk about social justice warriors, Vince, I feel you. People are treated like shit, and if I saw some dude that was about ready to beat a trainee's ass for walking into the men's room, I would stand in the gap. I would defend him. I, however, would also stand in the way of some dude about to walk into the bathroom while my little girl's using the toilet. Because I'm about liberty. And I'm also about respect, but I'm not about forcing someone to respect me. I'm about earning that respect. And if they're the type of person who won't have their respect earned by me, who the fuck are they? Why do I care? You know? Why do I care what they think of me? And so that's really why the social justice warrior thing gets under my skin so much, is because, yes, I understand you trying to address the disenfranchisement issue. What you don't understand is that there's a deeper, more important issue at stake here than merely feeling good, self-esteem, being accepted. No, we're talking about the very nature of our liberty and our future and what we are able to do with our own children, with our own property, how we're able to speak freely. You know, in Canada, you can get arrested for saying that the Bible says homosexuality is a sin, like literally brought to jail just for saying that. Did you know that?
No, I didn't know that.
I mean, that's awful. What I think that some people should be allowed to say that Jesus Christ was a sodomite. I think that people should be allowed to say fuck God and to say, you know, that all Christians are evil assholes. I don't agree with them, and I think they're douchebags for saying so, but I do believe that they have that right, and I will fight for that right. Like I've said many, many times, I will always fight for the right for a man to put his penis anywhere where it's welcome. But it's not welcome in my face, homie. That's the thing we got to keep in mind. It's a hard to follow up that diatribe, huh?
Well, but like stuff like transgender issues, like you're exploring in some ways what it means to be a man or a woman.
Mm-hmm.
There's a freedom as well. You know, it's not necessarily dictated by the organs you're born with. It's something internal. It's something in your head. It's something in your brain structure.
I think you're turning it on its head. I think you're turning it inside out. I think it's the other way around. I think that society has created the structure of gender roles, but that sexuality is intrinsic to our biology.
Yes, but gender identity is different than gender roles.
Okay, so we can build on that, and this is something that I was hoping to engage Melina in on Wednesday. I hope you catch that show, by the way. It's going to be at 12 noon Eastern on Wednesday. I get to have a civil conversation with a transvestite. And I'm trying to watch my verbiage, I'm trying to watch my language and the stuff I say. I know that they don't like to be called trannies and stuff. It's just a word I'm used to using.
It's a she, okay? Just remember that. She.
No, I will not. I will not use that pronoun. I will refrain from using personal pronouns and direct it to the person themselves.
But
well, because what gender pronouns are meant to reflect sex, and it's a part of gender. And this conversation is not a new one, and a lot of people think it is, but this has gone on for a very, very long time, how we try to explore how to take these natural biological roles and translate them into a contrived society. Because if we're honest with ourselves, we have to understand that the vast majority of the components that make up our social structure are contrived. They don't emerge naturally. That's why so many cultures express gender roles so differently. I mean, hell, look at Africa and the huge friggin' lip plates that they put in their lips and the hoops that they put in their ears. That's supposed to be sexy or something. Of course I don't get that. So in most cultures, men wear dresses. We're aware of that if we think about it enough. In most cultures, men do wear dresses, and in one of the manliest cultures on the face of this earth, they wear skirts proudly. Yes, I'm talking about the Scots. We need to understand it's not about the appearance necessarily, it's about the intention behind it. A man trying to be a woman is a sign of dysphoria. That's basically, I mean, this is where we need to differentiate between transgender and transvestites. Transvestites do not feel like they are a woman in a man's body or a man in a woman's body, as a general rule, the ones that I've known anyway. They just feel more comfortable in women's clothes is really all it comes down to.
Some of them try to cross-dress because they're entertainers.
Yeah, that's the majority of them. That's the majority of the ones I've known. They go to drag shows and stuff like that. But it really is, it's a spectacle. It's a spectacle, it's a game they play, and I would say maybe mental illness is too strong of a word. I would say it is psychologically divergent, which isn't an awful thing. We all have psychological divergencies. Every last one of us, down to Gandhi himself, and the Pope probably has more than most of us. So we're talking about psychological divergences and the right of a culture to address those divergences, whether to accept or reject them. And I don't see anything wrong with rejecting certain divergences. In many cultures, it's very unpopular to proselytize. In fact, in some of them, it's illegal. I don't like that, but if a town doesn't want me talking about Jesus, well, damn it, I'm going to have to keep that to myself now, aren't I?
Yeah.
It's the state getting involved that's my problem. You know, people determining their own standard on a local level, that's a beautiful and wonderful thing. We all should be far more involved in the democratic process. In fact, I say fuck the democratic process. Tribal process is how it really, that's where it's really at. Democracy is two wolves and a sheep voting for what's for dinner. However, tribalism, that's that networked, spread out, decentralized way of governance that doesn't really need any governance. Oh, I guess Sophie agrees with me. Or is that,
No, that was Abigail.
Oh, Abigail.
That's why I brought up the community portion of that rat study that you were talking about, because I just recently read that too. Because I think that almost, I don't know, a huge portion of the problems that we have are because we are so far removed from a sense of community, relying on each other, our neighbors, the people that are close to us, rather than some entity that's running us and telling us what we can and can't do.
And is it not so ironic that we live so densely, rooftop upon rooftop? Is it not so ironic that we have so much more proximity and yet so much more social distance between us? I say the internet has been the primary culprit in this regard.
I can completely agree with you there. I've cultivated a very good relationship with my neighbors, and you know what? I feel safe letting my kids go outside to play by themselves because I know that my neighbors are watching their kids and my kids just as I am. And I think that that's an important thing that, I mean, if you think about that on a larger level, not just, you know, neighbors watching kids, but, you know, I grow a garden, my neighbor's out of tomatoes. I'm not going to say, no, those are my tomatoes, sorry. I'm going to give them some tomatoes. But I feel like the world that we're turning into is, nope, sorry, those are my tomatoes. And that makes me really sad.
Well, here's the thing. I agree with...
TV, not internet, by the way, that calls it.
What's that, Vince?
I think it was the TV, not internet, that caused like our desensitivity to like others and stuff like that.
Yeah. You're right. The internet was just the next level. But yeah, you're totally right. And to be honest with you, even radio before that, a lot of people don't realize that was a big issue back in the 20s. Kids being stuck in front of the radio, listening to their serial novels, you know, their serial dramas, and Yeah, I still every now and then will look up one of those things on YouTube and go to bed listening to stuff like that. It's really cool. But here's the thing. You guys are all talking about civilization, okay? And that's great, because civilization is what's given us the world with all the medical wonders that we have, the travel. I mean, I can travel the world right now without having to work my whole life for it. I mean, just for a few $1,000s, I can take a cruise around the globe. I can have my bubonic plague cured. I can even like have prosthetics put into my penis to impress the ladies. This is a great world in which we live. God bless civilization and the white man for bringing it to us. I'm just kidding. Don't give me hate mail. But what about those among us who aren't necessarily social? Let's get a little anthropological about this. You do realize that civilization is the product of beta males, right? Anybody? Alpha males don't build cities. They rule them, but they don't coexist together very well.
So what's wrong with that? Everybody has their own function. We're not the same. There's a balance. People are different. There's good people, there's bad people, and I think that, or at least people that seem to be bad. I'm not sure about that. But I think that if everybody could be happier with their own role, and rather than trying to strive to be someone else or something else that they're not, you know, like a attack helicopter.
Screw you for judging me.
Whatever, man. Just don't use my bathroom. Okay. I just think that things could go a lot more smoothly if people would just, you know their role.
Shut your mouth and know your role, jabroni. Okay, I think there's something that I need to kind of explore a little bit. When I talk about society being built by beta males, what I mean is if you look at a wolf pack, you look at the alpha male, you see that the alpha male has the strongest genes, almost universally, the strongest genes, which is why he mates with the most women. The beta males can mate with some of them, but not many. Why is this, though? Why wouldn't the alpha male just mate with all of them? Why? It doesn't make any sense. I'll tell you why. Because they need workers. In order to build any community, you need followers. You can't all be leaders. And so this is why civilization happens. Because in order for us to band together, some people got to follow. But in order for us to have the strong genes that make us capable for tomorrow, we need the alpha males to still be around. And what we're trying to do... Wait, I'm almost done. So what we've been seeing is this war between alpha males and beta males, because the beta males obviously are insecure and threatened by the alpha males' aggression, and they should be, because alpha males will push it as far as you let them. Alpha males will take as much as they can from you. So this warfare between the two is justified, but it's self-destructive, because we need both alpha males and beta males. We need far more beta males than alpha males. But if we lose all alpha males from our society, that's just the beginning of the end, because beta males do not win wars. And inevitably, with any culture that's built, there comes challengers. And that's when the catastrophes come, when the natural disasters come, when the forces invade. That's when the alpha males stand up and go to war and make life possible for the beta males. And so, and I understand that this is a very patriarchal discussion, and then there's a whole other side to this, but it's a very broad topic, so I'm just trying to stay focused. So that's the only reason why I'm speaking strictly of males in this context. Go ahead, Vince.
Okay, why does American society then worship the alpha male so much?
Doesn't.
It does.
No, not at all. The alpha male is very unpopular these days.
You see Trump, people before he became part of his presidential election saying, "Oh, Trump is the best American around. See what he's doing."
Let me tell you something, Vince. Trump is a beta male. You don't understand what an alpha male is. Trump is a beta. He's very insecure. He's very suspicious. He's not comfortable in his own skin, and you can hear it in his rhetoric.
Total cock waver.
Yes, exactly. Alpha males don't wave their cocks around. Okay. I'll just put it out there. I'm naturally an alpha male, and there's sometimes for humor's sake, you know, I'll be a bit of a jackass. But I mean, seriously, how often have you seen me just like, you know, put my head low and show you I'm not a threat? You know, alpha males are not looking for a fight ever. They have an agenda, and they know how to get what they want. Donald Trump and men like him are beta males who wish they were alpha males. They're unstable and insecure, and like Cesar Millan says, human is the only creature that follows unstable leader. Alpha males are stable. Donald Trump's not stable.
Well, this variety of beta males then are being worshipped by America then.
Yes,
not the normal beta male,
and I'll tell you why that is. You want to know why that is? You want to know why that is? It is because everyone loves a narcissist. The reason why everyone loves a narcissist is because everyone wants to feel good about themselves, but they don't want to do the work that it takes to have something to brag about, so they live vicariously through the people who do. And basically it's just a what do you call that? A projection of their own persona onto them. Yeah, that's what I'd do if I was him. You go, man. It's just like people who are so into the sports teams. They're living vicariously through their heroes, so they don't have to do the work to actually have something to be proud of.
Gladiators.
Yep. It's egotistical laziness. If everyone wants to be the hero, no one wants to swing the sword or get punched.
That's a dangerous way to live, though.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I believe in civilization, but not for me. That's why I was getting to the whole point about how civilization was built for alpha males. I'm ready to just wait in the background until I'm needed. But when it comes to participation in all of this bullshit, I'm all set, man. Just let me go off into the woods, cut my trees down, and make my log cabin, and I'll leave you the fuck alone, okay?
And you should be allowed to.
Yes, absolutely, especially with all the land we have. America has so much unused land, it's pathetic. It's no skin off of anyone's back if everyone was allowed to have 1 acre for free. 1 acre. Is that really too much to ask? I mean, hell, they could have 10 hectares, and there'd still be plenty to go around, especially the further west you get. But here in Maine, fuck, man, you can just live on the paper company's land and let them cut around you. Why can't they just share? But they won't. No, I'm not a Bernie supporter. No, I'm not a liberal. I don't believe government should compel these things. I think that we should work together to negotiate a better tomorrow where people actually do these things willingly. And I think that that's the only way it's actually going to happen, because the more you legislate, the more you strong-arm, the more you cultivate an environment of strong-arming and bullying. And it just gets worse and worse. You end up getting the exact opposite of what you want.
And that's what the difference between a liberal and you, basically. A liberal will say you can't trust anybody, so you need to have a strong arm government to do it for you. You need to have somebody biggest bully of all to do it.
Well, the funny thing is we agree with that first part. You can't trust anybody. The problem is the liberal doesn't realize that the government is somebody.
Kind of. They're an amalgamation of people.
They're the sum of our weaknesses, Vince. The government is the sum of our weaknesses. But so this is really where it comes down to, that bigger rat cage. I think that we can agree to disagree. That if I had my own property out in the middle of nowhere, and all those assholes stopped trying to tell me how to raise my kids, stopped trying to tell me how I need to educate them and whatnot, trust me, my kids are going to be far more educated than public school kids. You don't got to worry about that. And yes, we are going to homeschool, by the way. I think we'd be insane not to. I think it was stupid of us not to thus far. But I digress. What I'm saying is, you give guys like me enough room to swing and flail and just... we're happy to live on the fringes. We're happy to stay out of your hair, but don't police my fucking thoughts. Don't tell me who I can't hate. Don't tell me who I can't insult. I'm not. Words don't mean nothing. The most ridiculous statement that I've ever heard in my entire life is that for me to refuse to associate with someone is violence. Oh my fucking head. I apologize for the language, but this is ridiculous. The right of association is violent? Are you kidding me? It's the antithesis of violence. It's me saying, you know what, I don't like you, and rather than punch you in the face, I'm going to go over here. And you're saying, no, you got to be my friend.
Is this a gay cake again?
It's not just the gay cake. The gay cake doesn't really even matter, okay? The gay cake only matters because of what's behind it. I'd bake the fucking cake, for crying out loud, just to shut them the fuck up. I would bake the cake, okay? Just because I don't want to hear their whining. Just because that's what kids do, is they fucking whine. So, yeah, okay, I'll bake the fucking cake. Stop bugging me. Stop trying to get me to sign your petitions and say, you know, stop trying to come into the damn bathroom when my daughter's using the bath. Just wait 5 minutes. Just do that solid for me. Here, I'll even give you $1. Just wait 5 minutes. Is that too much to ask? You know, it's these simple things that would be solved by people talking to people, communicating, listening, realizing, hey, that other person has needs too. That other person has thoughts, feelings, and emotions that might matter.
You're not always going to know that that dude is a dude, though. You know, some transgender people, they look exactly what they say they are. They say they're a woman, and they look like a woman.
Well, I will give you this, Vince. I will give you... Oh, go ahead. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Now, how are you going to protect your kids against this imaginary danger from everybody?
Imaginary danger. Nice loaded language there. It's not an imaginary danger, and I posted that video that proved otherwise. That this is an old tactic that predators have been using for a very long time that is now being legitimized by law. It's not about an imaginary danger. It's about a real danger that has been verified that is now being made more dangerous, where women and children are having less protection. I sympathize with the transgender people, but to be honest with you, they're not even the ones that are the most risk. The gay people are at more risk. Dude, seriously, if you've ever been in a public bathroom and had the unfortunate inclination just to glance over beside you, do you know how quickly dudes will flip the fuck out if they think you're scoping their junk? And we know that most transgender people aren't gay. In my experience, almost every transgender dude that I've met was either bi or straight. Almost every last one of them. I can't think of a single gay transgender dude that I've known. And so it's like, they're not... I mean, yeah, I can see guys being uncomfortable around that. And and I'm about to hit upon why this is such a problem to deal with it nationally. It's not a problem here in Maine. Here in Brunswick, we've got this dude named Dressy Jesse. Everyone calls him Dressy Jesse. He's mentally ill. We all know he's mentally ill, and we love him, okay? He's dressed in women's clothing ever since I was a little kid. He used to walk around the streets of Lewiston. Then he lived in Brunswick for a while. I guess now he's back in Lewiston. And yeah, there are some people who harass him and pick on him and stuff. But he's always been harmless. He's always been okay. He's just not quite there. Knowing this, knowing he's harmless and not just quite there, one day he comes across Michelle walking in the street, and he's wearing this tight little miniskirt, and he starts talking about how his thong's riding up his ass, and he takes it off right there in the middle of the street. Tries handing it to Michelle. Jesse doesn't know he's doing anything wrong. Jesse doesn't have a clue why this would bother someone. But bother someone it does. And this is a really, really scary situation, especially if there's like a 6-year-old around. Think about that for a second. Yes, it's a great learning experience for those like me who have the wherewithal to get on top of things and really like address it right off and not be totally freaking out about it. Most guys aren't secure like me, and they're going to be like, what do I do? What do I do? They're going to be like, oh, yes, there's nothing wrong with that. That's perfectly okay. Or they're going to be like, hey, what the fuck you doing in front of my woman? It's like, no, the elevator's not going to the top floor, guys. Go easy on him. Explain to him that it's not okay, but don't start punching him in the face, for crying out loud. Really, have some decency. So, around here in Maine, this doesn't tend to be a problem because people have that understanding. There's not a lot of really great community up here, to be honest with you. People are distant. They are a little cold. I don't care for that. I mean, if you're gonna live around other people, you should have somewhat decent relationships and know them. But okay, whatever. But I think what really counts is that nobody's really trying to tell anyone else how to live. You know, I live in a very, very liberal community where the lesbians outnumber the straight men probably 2 to 1. and I play guitar on the streets, and you know how I'm not afraid to have conversations with people and speak my mind, but I'm also not willing to go out of my way to hurt people's feelings and to be an asshole to them. And, you know, we'll get into conversations about stuff like this, and people are just really cool about agreeing to disagree or focusing on points of agreement and finding a way to connect. And it's if people could follow that model, then all of this shit would disappear. But the fact is we want to enforce friendship. We want to enforce goodwill. We want to enforce all these things. What happens when you tell a kid what to do? They instantly want to do the opposite. You start telling me I gotta be friends with gay people, I'm gonna be like, screw you. What if I don't like perverts? You know? Oh, yes. I didn't realize it's almost 3:30, isn't it? Yes, my woman's going to pick up my boy. That's okay. I don't gotta get off right off. But you feeling what I'm saying, Vince?
Sure. I know what you're talking about.
How is it in Wisconsin?
Wisconsin? I'm in Minnesota.
Or Minnesota. Same difference. Minnesota, Wisconsin, Montana. Is there really a difference? Michigan.
I'm not really that social, so I don't really get into those situations. But there's a big metropolis beside us, so I'm sure there's lots of gay people, lots of straight people, lots of transgender people.
Does this really seem like a local issue that affects you and stuff, or is it more the national level that catches you?
It's more the national level. It's pretty liberal around here.
Mm-hmm. I think most rustic areas have a very socially liberal attitude, but a very fiscally conservative mindset. Does that make any sense? Like where people, the further out you get, the more rustic you get, the more people just don't get into each other's business, and you know, don't ask, don't tell kind of takes over. That sound like it? Yeah. Well, yeah, I think it's a lot like that around here. People, I think it's changed a bit the past couple of years because I see a lot of the lesbians getting more brash about stuff. But from what I've seen, the gay guys think this is a hoot. Maine gay guys are nasty. I don't know how gay people are anywhere else in the world, but the gay guys around here, all of that language that all the straight people get pissed at me for using, and they use it with each other. Okay, they're really just they're just nasty. They're funny, you know. I've had a lot of gay friends, but they're what's that?
But black people also use that language with themselves as well. The language that we shouldn't use on them. You know what I mean? They're trying to, I don't know, liberate it from its original meaning or something. I don't know what they're trying to do, but they do use it.
If black people weren't so insecure, it wouldn't look any different from any other culture. Look, I could sit there with a friggin' Frenchman and call him a frog, which I am French, by the way, and I'm also Irish, and I can sit there and call someone a Mick. I'm not going to get offended by someone calling me a Mick. And before you start saying we weren't disenfranchised, check it out. Irish people were put in the same category as Negroes coming into the United States, so you can't even say that. And the French people were, and the French people coming from Quebec. Oh, the Irish were indentured servants, dude. They were slaves. So they really, there was very little difference. If you ever seen Gangs of New York, spot on, man. Spot on. It was cold, hard. All those people who say that white people owe black people because everything we have was stolen from other cultures, they don't know jack shit about what they're talking about. Some did, some didn't. Others were ones that got shit stolen from them. It's been a mess all throughout history. To oversimplify it like that shows just how racist some people really can be. But I digress. You know, it's funny that the show started about being in the flow, and now we're talking about all the social justice issues again. And I think that that's a really good thing. I think that that's a really good thing because that is the flow nowadays. Because I am of the conviction that we are in the midst of a cultural singularity where the events of today and tomorrow are going to disproportionately shape the course that the future takes from this point forward. We're at a very pivotal point in our history where how everything plays out is going to have very lasting consequences, to the point where we're going to look back and not even not even really understand how we could have thought otherwise prior. And having said that, I think it's very telling that people are so passionate on either side. You mentioned Donald Trump. The reason why people are so obsessed with Donald Trump is because everyone's so sick and tired of apologizing all the time, of always feeling bad. You know, everyone does fucked up stuff. Everyone screws up. But, man, everyone does good stuff, too. And anyone who's ever been to any kind of counseling knows that you need to have a level of self-esteem to have any kind of efficacy in the world, in the way you conduct yourself. You need to believe in yourself. And we've gotten to the point of white guilt, of American guilt, where we're constantly downing ourselves and treating ourselves like we're nothing but a piece of shit and nothing good can ever come from us. I love what Martin Luther King said when he was asked, do you think that the black people are oversexed and commit more crime? And I'm butchering the quote, but his response were, yeah, I do think they're doing that, because they're always told that. If you're always told you're a certain way, why is it a surprise when people start acting it out? You keep telling someone that they're going to do this, they're probably going to do that. How about we tell them we believe in them? How about we actually think about what we're accomplishing with our condemnation and turn that condemnation into some kind of constructive criticism? Yeah. You feel me, homie? I'm getting on a roll today. It's a beautiful day out here. I wish you guys could see the camera, but it's a beautiful day, and it's just I'm really enjoying the conversation because
the sun is going to affect your camera, or is that an effect you put on it?
It's not an effect I've put on it. It's I don't know, honestly. This hasn't. It might be because the settings are different from my account or something, because I did this on my personal account rather than the Wandering Pilgrims account. So I know that when I go like this, my hand starts looking normal and stuff. So I think it's probably the Google compression, because the phone was working fine. But anyway. So, anyway, Vince, what is the pull that you feel in your heart, that overarching theme? And I think I might have an idea of your answer, but I'm just curious because the whole theme of this is feeling the flow, getting into the zone, you being in the spirit. What is driving you lately? Where do you find your thoughts constantly returning to?
If I think about anger.
Anger in regards to what?
To the way things are in the world, to inequality, etc.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Anger can be a good thing.
Not really. I don't think so.
It all depends on what capacity. Anger, even Gandhi said anger needs to be channeled rightly, and it's good. I think it's good. There's some things that you should be angry about. If you're not angry about people being wantonly abused and people being maliciously mistreated, then I would question your humanity. When something's so intrinsic to who we are as a species, I have a hard time seeing it as a bad thing.
What did you think I was going to answer?
That was about it. Because I would have put it in different terms. I would have worded it to say that you're sick and tired of you're sick and tired of people being herded into box-like cages and treated subhumanly. That's probably what my answer would be.
Okay.
Because that's what we're talking about. We're talking about defining people rather than letting them define themselves. And I don't want to jump the gun, but that's something that I really want to touch off with Melina on Wednesday. Is we have this idea in our heads that we can define our identity by our actions and attitudes, and I say that that's hogwash. That is the height of hubris. That is absolutely ludicrous, that we can no more define ourselves by our actions and attitudes than we can create ourselves through genetic engineering. You can't make you can't make yourself be. Before you are not, in order to bring yourself about. In other words, you didn't make you. So I say life is a process of discovery where at the end we still have more questions than answers, but the answers that we have, hopefully, are the right ones and the ones that matter the most.
Yeah, but as a fetus, you start off as a female.
That is very true. If you're looking at it specifically from a mechanistic process, if you're looking from
So
a
suppose I wouldn't say wrong if something goes non-standard with your process in the fetal development. Is it possible that you could end up with a male body and a female genes being expressed in your brain, or I'm talking about say a female brain and a male body?
no.
You don't think so?
That's a misunderstanding of what's going on. There's a reason they haven't found the gay gene. What we're talking about is the misalignment of spirit with flesh, and the spirit evolves definitely. The flesh does not. Your flesh is static. So when you say that we all start off life as a female, like I said, if you want to speak strictly mechanistically, I guess you'd have a point. But what would be a vulva becomes a penis and scrotum after that. It's not as though that was ever in doubt. The genes don't lie, and the Y chromosome will not be suppressed. As far as how that works out psychologically, we're talking about apples and oranges here. Ideally, okay, we'll take my daughter as an example. Dude, I am rough with my little girl, okay? And she doesn't, of all the things she cries about, it's not about me roughhousing with her. I'll tell you that right now. She's a hardy little shit. I am rough with her. She comes at me. We wrestle around. She laughs and giggles. I toss her up in the air. I'm not super gentle with this girl, and I'm not super gentle with the way I talk to her either. She gets up in my face. She's like, ah, ah. I'm like, Madeline, enough. And she's like, giggling as she walks away. Her feelings ain't hurt. This girl has been rugged from day one. But check it out. She's obsessed with shoes. She's obsessed with headbands and scarves. She's obsessed with accessorizing.
What happens if the boy was obsessed with those things?
I'm obsessed with those things. He's not. What I'm trying to tell you is she is who she is regardless of how I raise her. Okay? The only thing that raising her with an aversion to these things is going to do is cause her, drum roll please, dysphoria. Identity dysphoria. That's what I'm saying, is people that have that gender dysphoria, it comes from how the experiences that they endured growing up. I'm not saying that it was engineered. I'm not saying that their parents were awful. I'm not saying that they experienced trauma. What I'm saying is that their unique set of experiences crafted such an environment, whereas their personal psychology was very comfortable with going down that road.
So do you agree with like gay conversion programs that they have some Christians run?
No, I don't. The reason why I don't, I think that Focus on the Family has the right model, where it's just about counseling. It's just about talking through things. It's just about exploring yourself, getting to know yourself, exploring the reasons behind what you feel, and just digging deep into yourself. I think that that's the only appropriate response to any psychological divergence. I think any kind of quote-unquote aversion therapy, I mean, dude, we've all seen A Clockwork Orange. Do we not get the point that was trying to be made with that book? You can engineer behavior, you can even engineer a response. What you cannot engineer is a will. A person will choose what they will choose, and they will not be coerced into willfully choosing otherwise. They will, against their will, choose a certain way, but they will not be willfully coerced. So any kind of aversion therapy is actually causing more harm than good. It's building up a greater wall of resistance. And it's really shattering the person's psyche too. It's just awful all around. So I do believe in talking about things and exploring and really cultivating deep relationships of intimacy and honesty, where you can really be honest with yourself and with those closest to you about what you really feel and why you really feel it. And if you continually engage these things, I really feel that nobody is hopeless. Nobody is consigned to a particular fate. You may never desire sex with women. You may always desire sex with men. You may never desire to dress as a man. You may always desire, you may always desire little children if you're a pedophile. So how do we deal with that? Just for the sake of argument, how do we deal with pedophilia? Because I have researched this very, very deeply, and it is ingrained in who they are. It's one of those things where they're a eunuch. They're either a eunuch or they're a predator. There's no in between. They will never have a healthy sexual attraction towards anyone their age, never mind the opposite sex. And by the way, I know most pedophiles are not gay, so let's just get that out of the way. You know, how do you deal with that? Do you just accept that? Because that's an actual movement, dude. That's actually a movement right now. NAMBLA, the North American.
I've heard it before, yeah.
Yeah, the North American Man-Boy Love Association. This is actually a real organization. We're such a libertine society. We allow these people to have an organization dedicated towards grown men having sexual intercourse with prepubescent children. Homosexually, even. Like, same sex. Like, anal. Like, I apologize for anyone who's watching who's offended by this imagery, but we can't bury our heads in the sand about this stuff. Come on, really. This is where we're going as a society. Where do we decide these norms? Where do we decide what's okay? And that's why I say I'm not really comfortable with telling someone else how they should feel about themselves. I'm not really comfortable at all offering any unsolicited advice. I'm not even comfortable judging whether what a person does is right or wrong. For all I know, that could be their path. A man having a homosexual relationship with another man could be the very path he needs to bring him to where he needs to be. I'm just not comfortable playing.
That's not harmful. That's not like pedophilia.
I would disagree. But all I'm saying is I'm not comfortable playing God. I can have my opinion, but my opinion is such a personal thing that it's actually rather offensive if I offer it unsolicited. So I'm just really not comfortable having any level of control over other people's lives. What I am comfortable with is building relationships, getting to know people, and understanding, you know, the things that they're dealing with, and offering whatever contribution that I may to their lives. You know, I always want to be a positive influence. All I know is that when it comes to these issues of identity, and it comes to the issues of culture, we need to understand that they are separate categories, and that what's acceptable culturally does not necessarily have to do any violence against your personal identity. It's finding the compromise where you can fully own your identity, but still abide by the agreed upon rules of interaction and culture at large, and find an agreement. Why can't we all just be happy? You know? I think it really has to do a lot with just our fear that if we don't have control over other people, they're going to be exercising control over us to such a degree as we will lose something that's beyond compromise that we can't stand losing. And I think a lot of times you just got to take it on the chin, really. I do a lot. I think, you know, a lot of times when it comes to these trans gay issues. Sorry, you're breaking up. What?
That's the reason behind nationalism. Like, we fear other countries, so we build up our armies, and we say our army is going to be bigger than yours, so don't fuck with us.
Well, I don't know. I don't necessarily think that that's what nationalism's all about. I think I agree with what you're saying, that tends to be what it works out to. But I think nationalism at its heart is really just about us. Like, look at the Swiss model. I think the Swiss do nationalism great. They're very much involved in the international community. However, they don't really have a vested interest in what's going on in the rest of the world, so they don't really feel the need to influence it, just as long as everyone else doesn't really feel the need to influence them. What's that, you know, that old saying, I'm Swiss? That means I'm neutral. But they're very nationalistic. Switzerland is one of the most nationalistic countries in the world. Swiss people are very, very proud to be Swiss, and they should be. They are people with a rich history of great accomplishments, and they've found an equilibrium between socialism and capitalism that, to me, I mean, if it's not the envy of the world, I envy it. I wonder how they were able to strike such a balance. You know, the more I look into it, the more puzzled I get by it, because it seems like the wet dream for both sides. I don't know why we're all not like clamoring after their model, but suffice it to say,
tax haven as well.
oh yeah, absolutely. It's crazy. I don't understand why Switzerland works. I honestly don't. I'm very fascinated by Switzerland. Everyone's all obsessed with Scandinavia. I think Switzerland's where it's at. But anyway, all of this comes back. The question is, here's a great way to put it. I don't want to go too much longer because I don't want to lose our viewership. Holy cow, we've been almost 2 hours. I'm great to talk. I'm great to keep talking. I just don't want to go too long-winded.
You should go 8 hours before, yeah?
We cracked 7 a couple of times, but that's not really brag worthy. Nobody watched those shows. But, well, anyway, what I want to say is that there is a spirit of the age, and there is a Holy Spirit in the world. And I think that that's even compatible with Buddhism, really. If you think about Brahman, Atman, and you know how.
More Hindu.
Okay, more Hindu, but Buddhism isn't entirely divorced from the concepts, is it?
If any Buddhists are watching, that did say yes, it is.
Well, okay. I don't want to digress too much on that. How am I going to put this? There are definitely many different winds blowing, but there's a primary current, right? There's the jet stream. And so, in the midst of all these eddies, in the midst of all these tossing to and fro, I see the majority of the useful idiots of Western culture. But what's the jet stream? What's the actual flow? And is it a good thing? Is it a bad thing? Or is it neutral? I say none of the above. I say it's perfectly everything, depending on who you yourself are. So if you're a good person, the flow will find you, and the task that you have is to let go and get caught up in it and apply that effort where that flow directs you. If you're a bad person, well, the trick is to find the flow and let it destroy you so you can emerge like the phoenix from the ashes and begin anew. Because there's some things about myself that I've had to learn to hate. I've had a lot of malice in my heart for certain people that I had to recognize was absolutely no harm to them, but toxic in the extreme to myself. And I needed to let go of it. And more than that, not only did I need to learn to forgive, I needed to learn to love people that I hated. It's not an easy thing to do, man. It's really not an easy thing to do. And yeah.
I feel like once you do it, it gets easier because you see the reward and you see how freeing it is for your own spirit.
To a degree. I think that there are different levels here, and I think if we can go beyond mere petty offenses and talk about actual meaningful harms, especially with continuing threats of danger, it becomes increasingly harder, especially as because sometimes love lives the life of a martyr. And sometimes that martyrdom takes a form that's debilitating rather than merely persevering. And so I'm not trying to contradict you. All I'm saying is that in living love, there is all the benefit in the world, but that doesn't take away from the fact that there's real cost. and if it wasn't, it wouldn't yield the results that it does.
You're absolutely right. That's why love is so powerful and worth it, because the reward, which oftentimes is not for yourself, is so worth it. It's just one of those things that no matter what you have to sacrifice, if it's for that real, true love, that one person or two people or however many people, really, it's worth it in the long run.
Yeah. So how do we exist in the flow? How do we get in the zone? How do we find our zen when it seems like the eddies are churning up the water all around us, and it's so easy to mistake that jet stream, or mistake a simple little gust of wind for the actual jet stream? Because in my mind, that's what really draws us astray. Once we get there and everything's all good, it's like we think we're following it, but there's this cross current, and we don't recognize it for the cross current until we're so far down that we got to fight against it to get back to where we were. Or even worse, there is no getting back. We got to find a current that will take us back. Am I getting too abstract with this? Is everyone following me?
Often the need to create a new normal that was there when you started is no longer there.
Okay, you're gonna have to repeat that without your daughter talking over you.
Sorry, I said that stop. You need to create a new normal once you go with the flow, because the normal that was there when you started, it doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah, but that's striving. You're talking about actively creating something. I'm talking about working within what's already there. How do you translate that? How do you become passive in that scenario?
Nobody may have any water.
Well, don't hold on. Continue, but yeah.
Well, okay. So I get what you're saying. You say you need to create a new flow. I would reword that, and I would say you need to find a new flow. Because one of the biggest, all I was gonna say is one of the biggest illusions that we have is that we actually make anything happen. Human beings, and this is a hill I'm willing to die on. If you really want me to, I can argue it philosophically, logically speaking. From sheer reason, I can argue it from religion, from Christianity. I can argue it from just about any perspective. The fact is everybody serves somebody. Okay.
Well, sure. What I'm saying
is that our actions are not our own, and so it's a matter of choosing the inspiration that we cling to. When we think that we've actually created an idea or created a thought in and of ourselves, we are being deceived, and we're actually being tricked into owning someone else's.
That's kind of what I'm saying. Only I'm trying to talk quickly so that my children don't interrupt everything. But when you're in the flow, there's no creating a new normal, like what I was saying, because that is it. That's it. Like you're in it. If you're truly just going, with the flow, then that's what normal is. That's how it is. You're right. You don't create anything because you're just a part of it. You're just a functioning part of that flow.
Mm-hmm. Hey, Johnny, you've been quiet for a while. You still with us? Johnny Ray. John Zambrato. Domo irrigato, Johnny Zambrato. Yeah, he's taking care of some customers. You what, mate? There he is. So, you have any thoughts on this?
7.
Deadly X's?
7. That's my thoughts. 20. The answer is 28.
28.
What's the question?
The question is, are you gay?
The answer is no.
Not today, huh?
Not ever. Not now, not never.
Well, it looks like
I have a
Vince
question
dropped
for
out.
you.
Okay.
Whose chair is that?
Whose chair is what?
It's not my chair. Not my chair, not my problem. That's what I say.
This is obviously a pop culture reference that I don't get.
I don't get it either.
Well, you guys need to get up on your shit. That's all I have to say.
It sounds like The Sopranos. Not my chair, not my problem.
Whose floor is that? I ain't never paying for no floor. Never again.
Oh, Vince thinks he was removed. Let me see if I can.
I booted him.
You,
No,
you didn't. That would be so wrong. Vince has been one of my favorite contributors.
No, I haven't. I didn't boot him.
Okay, there he is.
I
I was just about to add you back, Vince. I think you probably have a sketchy connection or something.
Okay, all right.
There's so much.
So Johnny doesn't have any opinions, other than he likes cheese.
Microphone, boy. Look at his picture.
What?
I like his microphone.
Oh yeah, yeah. What is that? An SM58?
That one is a blue baby bottle, but I got rid of it.
Oh, I can't even. Oh, now I see it close up. I didn't see the pop screen and shit in front of it.
Now I sing through an SM7B, and it's a great mic.
Who says you?
You sang. I didn't know you sang.
You're not familiar with his music? Holy cow!
Dude,
Yeah,
are you serious? Everybody knows my music.
You gotta blow up his inbox, dude.
Send him the link to the live show.
Send him Dream. I think that's the best one you guys have done. It's not the most complex or the complicated one, but it's the one that I think is gonna resonate with the most people. Anyway, yeah, I'm an Ionios fanboy. Free plug. So, anyone else want to add anything else before I draw the broadcast to a close? Anybody? Bueller?
Nothing else.
Nothing else? Well, I would sum it up in saying, Way Woo Way has been an obsession of mine for a little while now, as has quietism. I wish I would have talked a bit about quietism, but I can save that for another day. And it's so funny because these disciplines seem so contrary to the image that I portray in public, yet so few people know what a shtick it is that I just put on for my interactions and whatnot. But suffice it to say, I really believe firmly that we so badly overcomplicate things when we make it all about, that stress of bringing it about to be. I don't remember where I read it, but it was in some old confession talking about the subtlety of God. And that statement really struck me, how God is subtle. It's like, you think of power as being this loud cacophony breaking through, like parting of the skies and everything just going all to hell, but it's like, no, true power is in a whisper that changes the world. True power is in effortless change. True power is in understanding a thing and knowing the minimal effort necessary to make it do what you want it to do. The ancients called that, you'll like this, Sarah, Sophia. They called it skill or mastery of a thing. We translate it today as wisdom. And I think the truest wisdom that we can ever know is that the more we try to control, the less control we really have. But the more we find ourselves in the flow, the more able we are from within the flow to affect the change that's allotted to us. It's not about a cessation of any effort. It's just about a cessation of all effort that you've done thus far and learning a new way of efforting that doesn't involve striving. Because striving necessarily implies opposition. Remember the opposing muscles example I gave. Well, in the absence of that opposition, yeah, the danger is overshooting your mark. But I think maybe, just maybe, you might surprise yourself. Keep your eye on the prize and your mind on the goal, and you never know, you might just pull it off. For little extracurricular homework, look up drunken boxing style and understand why I would relate it to this concept, because it's truly, truly good stuff right there. So, Way Woo Way, I've been thinking about that. Quietism, that's another great thing. Such great stuff. Thank you guys for joining us. Really glad that we can have these conversations and work this stuff out. And hopefully I will see everyone here on Wednesday when I engage Melina on
At the
some
same time?
at noontime. I will be engaging Melina at noontime Eastern on Wednesday about what's becoming the most prescient issue in this culture. GLBT rights, responsibilities, and interaction, and how we are all integrated as a culture. I don't know. I don't even know how to characterize it, but it's right along the lines of what we're talking about today, and how we can find out what the flow really is here, what the spirit really is, and what we can take and what we can leave. But until then, keep wondering. Remember, not all who wander are lost, and if you think that you've gotten there, chances are you're further than you realize, and further than you'd ever want to be. Life is a journey. Don't give up. Keep going. It ain't fun unless it hurts. So, what's the word? It ain't rock and roll unless you bleed. So have a good one, and God bless everybody. Thank you for joining me.